In this piece, I want to talk about portfolio insurance. What do I mean by that? Well, essentially, it's building insurance. Possibly not the most sexiest of topics. However, massively, massively important topic, you know, particularly for those of us that have had a claim in the past. And if that claim's ever been argued, negotiated, rejected, then it's a hugely important topic. And therefore, I want to cover that off today. And if you are wanting to get the right balance, get the right quality of insurance, and possibly save some money, then you must listen to this piece. So if you are a landlord that renews their buildings insurance on a property by property basis, just does one insurance policy for one property, then straight away, as a portfolio landlord, you are missing out on a trick here, because there is this thing called portfolio insurance, where if you approach the insurer with all your portfolio or multiple properties, you've got discounts to be had. So if you're not taking advantage of that already, then straight away make a note, write this down to give us a ring at the end of this piece, jump on the online diary, book some time in, and we will have a review of your insurance. And hopefully, if nothing else, we can get you the same quality of cover and actually save you some money. Who doesn't want that? So, things to look out for. De facto ratings. Now, we've all been on holiday to hotels that have got a 3-star rating, a 4-star, 5-star rating. It's exactly the same as that. So, but it's got this fancy name called de facto. 5-star is the highest, and in my opinion, is the rating that you should have for your buy-to-let properties. So again, jot this down. Have a look afterwards. Dust off that policy. What star rating is. If you've got your policies off comparison sites in the past, then that's all about price. It tends to give you a league table based on cheapest premium. And the cheapest premiums are, if you do that on booking.com, your 3-star properties will come out the top, won't they? They're the cheapest. But do you want to stay there? Well, it's questionable, isn't it? So it's the same with insurance. Be mindful of your cheap quotations. So is your policy a 4-star or a 5-star de facto rated property? You should be getting 5-star, in my opinion. And I'm going to give you some examples shortly. Again, you might want to jot this down to understand what the difference between 4 and 5-star might be. Now, one of the things that I would look for is emergency call-out cover. As a landlord myself, the sort of phone calls I get, or via the agent, are things like, the boiler's stopped working, the boiler's broken down, we've got a problem with the pipe work, maybe the water's not working properly, or we've got a leak, or the drainage isn't working. Something of that nature. Or there's issues with the locks, you know, the key's broken in the lock, or I just can't get in the house, the lock's just given up completely. And it's, do these calls happen at 10 a.m.? No, they don't, do they? They happen at 10 o'clock at night. Of course they do. So with these policies, you've got 24/7 call out, 365 days a year. You make one phone call to one number for any trade, and the insurance company then will deal with it. They'll send out the tradesperson to deal with that issue. So peace of mind for you as a landlord. And because I would say that's one of the biggest outlays as a landlord, that general maintenance stuff when it comes to the sort of things that I've just mentioned. So if you can get those included in your insurance policy, massive savings, because it's going to reduce your maintenance costs. Rent guarantee. Look, when you've been a landlord for a number of years, eventually there'll be a tenant that doesn't pay. It's a fact. So if you can build into your insurance policy a rent guarantee that says if your tenant gets into arrears, we will start paying your rent, then that's a brilliant benefit to have. Now, just to give you an idea, they'll pay out for a further 6 months. So your tenant's got into arrears by 2 months. That's usually the trigger. The rent guarantee kicks in for a further 6 months. And that gives you the breathing space to say, right, how do I deal with this tenant? You'll see on the next bullet point, legal protection. They actually go hand in glove. If you've got rent guarantee included in your policy, you will also have legal protection. The insurer will insist on it because it may well be you've got to engage with a solicitor to get those arrears back paid off. And it might require, great if it's just a few phone calls, but if you're 2 months in arrears, it's getting quite serious, isn't it? It's not just a few days late. With 2 months in arrears, so you're probably going to need some legal backing to sort out those arrears. Or if the worst case happens, how do you get the tenant out of your property? Either way, legal redress may be required, in some cases even going through the courts. So the costs of all that redress is taken care of with the insurance policy if you've got the rent guarantee part of things. Now, here's an important thing about trace and access. If you've not heard about this, the best way to describe it is for me to give you my own example, my own story that happened to me only about 2 years ago. I got a leak and knew there was a leak because in my utility room, the floors are tiled and the grouting had gone a really dark colour and it was sort of damp to the touch. You knew something was wrong. And I knew there was pipes under the tiles. So sadly, we had to chip into the tiles, lift a few tiles up, and it was quite obvious then underneath that the floor was wet. So we had a bigger issue. So to get to the point of the part of the pipe where the leak was, the tiles had to come up. The tiles went under a kitchen in the utility room, so the kitchen had to come out. Once all the tiles were up, then you've got the wooden flooring has to come up, and eventually you've got access to the pipe work. The pipe itself was just a little hairline crack, and the pipe was actually fixed in about an hour. But of course, guess what? The invoice, I would say 90% of the cost and the time and the effort is removing a kitchen, upping the tiles, sorting out the flooring, and only 10% of the time and the cost is actually repairing the leak. Now, here's the thing you really need to check. Because in the 4-star rated or the lower quality type of insurance, trace and access is not included. So in my example, in my story, if I hadn't have had that included, I would have had to pay that trades guy to remove a whole kitchen. You can imagine, and they have to do it carefully because they don't want to, no one wants to then have to put a brand new kitchen in. So can you take a kitchen out really carefully in one piece with very little to no damage? Quite often you've got tiling along the back, so you're going to damage some tiles as a very minimum. So all that effort will be at the expense of you as a landlord, taking the tiles up, the flooring up, and only once you've exposed the pipe leak would that be covered by the insurance. And, you know, it's not all landlords know about this trace and access. So again, that higher quality cover absolutely pays for itself. In the example I've just given you, I was delighted that the fact that I'm aware that that is something that's important to have included. Another thing that you'll find in 5-star rated properties, insurance policies, is something called unoccupied property cover. What insurers really don't like is an empty. Look, we don't like empty properties, do we? Because we're not getting an income stream. Insurers don't like empty properties because it's more likely they're going to get broken into, or if it's empty, if there is a leak, it's not going to get spotted for longer. It's going to cause more damage. So insurers do not like empty properties. So you may not be aware of this, but they will have a maximum period of which that insurance will still be valid before eventually the insurer says, we're not covering you anymore. Now, 60 days is what you're looking for. The cheaper policies will do a 30-day unoccupied property cover. So again, if you're unsure, dust off the policy, have a look, see what you've got. That'll be another clue that it's a lower quality policy. You want the 60-day cover. And just to finish off on that particular piece, beyond 60 days, does that mean you have no cover whatsoever? If, let's say, you're in between tenants or you bought a property and you're doing some work to it, and it's going to take longer than 60 days to not only get the property up to scratch, but then to advertise and get a tenant in. Does that mean you've got no cover whatsoever? No, it doesn't, but it does default to a basic type of cover, a more diluted version than the full cover that you would have when your tenant's in place. And that's across the board with all properties. So be really mindful of that. And actually, if you're actually buying a property that's, let's say, a project property, it's going to take you months to get the property renovated, then actually you want a different type of policy altogether, insurance. The normal buildings insurance policy for occupied properties is not relevant. It's not fit for purpose. If you've got a project property, you should have something slightly different whilst you're in project mode, and then that gets cancelled and replaced by the normal occupied buildings insurance. So please bear that in mind as a landlord if you've got any project type properties. I really hope that's been of use. You've made some notes. And if you want to speak to us about your existing policy, can you get it cheaper for the same quality? Maybe we can get better quality and it doesn't cost you any more. Then we'd be delighted to have a look at your existing policy, give you some feedback on it, and whether you can improve, and like I say, the quality of cover, or indeed save a bit of money. So if so, click on the link, book some time in, and let's see if we can help. And just to finish with, here's our slide on that link through to our online diary and booking system. We have evening slots right through Monday through to Friday, as well as the daytime slots. If there's any slots that you're looking for that are not on the diary, just give the office a call. Look, we're really flexible. We'll do what we can. If you're only around even on a weekend, we'll do our best to speak to you on a weekend if you're working away, for example, or there's some urgent issue that means that you need to speak to someone and there doesn't seem to be any availability. Just give the office a call and we'll absolutely bend over backwards to help you out. And really finally, that's a listing of the services that we offer, starting off with insurances at the top, right through to the different types of finance, whether it's short-term with bridging, or flipping properties, whether it's getting commercial, semi-commercial, buy-to-lets, holiday-lets, and everything in between. We'll be delighted to help. If you've enjoyed this and stuck it to the end, then really appreciate your attention. Do click on the like and subscribe. It really helps us to increase the profile. The more people we get on, the more we're likely to put content and keep this going. And give us your feedback. If there's topics you want us to cover later on in this year, then just put it into the comments and I'll do my best to cover off those topics later on. Other than that, thank you so much for listening and watching today, and have a great rest of the month, and we'll see you on the next update.